every new technological wave, corporate America has sold us promises of a newer, better, improved life. The radio, the telephone, the television, the computer. But what did we really get sold? The potential of radio, television, and cable television to be great tools of education, information, and community communication has been steamrolled by the profit-driven communications industry. Today, communications technology is converging, and we are once again threatened by corporations wanting to monopolize the communications future, our communications future.
January 1993. Time Warner announces at a press conference in New York that it will build the first full-service network in Orlando, Florida, combining cable, digital, and fiber optic technologies. This digital pathway into the home can deliver not only an unlimited array of entertainment and educational programming, but interactive and personal communication services as well.
This new cable architecture will be the primary pathway, the basic electronic highway into the home to deliver interactive multimedia and provide the consumer with the kind of choice that just hasn't been available until now.
Ready? Same question, true or false? Plate tectonics is the study of continental shift. Again, plate tectonics is the study of continental shift. True or false? After this break, we'll be back with the final offer.
The public is just being told by all the corporate interests that everything's going to be terrific in the future, that you will have more choices, that you will be able to have video on demand, that you'll have a completely changed system. It will be interactive, and that all you have to do is just sort of sit back and wait for it to arrive at your doorstep.
Take part in the birth of an industry. Take part in TV Answer. What's truly revolutionary is that viewers can now take an active part in new programs that directly involve the home audience and increase advertising dollars.
I think that the American public is being sold a real bill of goods with this interactive stuff. I mean, they're being told you'll have choices and you'll have power and you'll have control over the media and it's going to be interactive. Well, the problem with interactive and the way that it's being developed is that it's really designed to get you to respond to something that's very manipulative. Quite often they're going to sell you something. So when they say it's interactive, what it is, won't you buy this right now?
Shop as long as you like. Shop as long as you like. So 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 shop as long as you like. When the shopping's over, it's time to pay the bills.
The media companies in this country want to create a system where everything is either pay-per-view or even pay-per-minute. Every time we watch the local news, every time we watch the Yankees or the Mets, every time we watch basketball, the meter is going to be running. The toll booth is going to be collecting. And a lot of this programming is going to be unaffordable, whether we like the programming or not. It's not a conspiracy. They consider it efficiency in the 21st century for modern corporate life. But what these media companies don't understand is they're not dealing with bananas. They're not dealing, with apples and oranges. They're dealing with our democracy.
I think the drivers for the building of the infrastructure, building of the new network, will probably come a great degree from entertainment services. The whole cable TV industry has grown around provision of entertainment services, and I think that'll continue. That certainly, as what we've seen, is the highest willingness to pay. Behind that, I think what will happen is that private industry for private networks will certainly, there is a willingness to pay there. Government network seems to be right behind that.
Those of us who worked in the library community all these years know the difference between providing popular materials and the difference with providing more educational materials to sort of lift the cultural level of our citizens. There's clearly always going to be a certain conflict. Whether or not entertainment can help to subsidize the others is questionable. How will that subsidy be set up? Where will the incentives be to encourage those who are profiting from the entertainment industry to cross-subsidize the industries that are not profitable? I think that we've seen that ideal put into place before, but as the political winds change, lots of times those who are not as market-driven are the ones who lose. And ultimately, it's the public who loses in that kind of environment.
We're developing a media system where only a handful of interconnected corporations control both the major means of production, the Hollywood studios, the broadcasting TV stations, the cable programming services and the newspapers, and the distribution channels, the cable channels, the superhighway channels, etc., delivery systems. A handful of companies will control all the content and the conduit. America has never really sort of experienced this, and it's something we have to look at very closely and very critically.
What's happening to the communications industry? How have so many partnerships occurred between these huge corporations? Well, it's been 1 year since the FCC issued its video dial tone ruling. Video dial tone allowed the phone companies to broadcast video as well as own part of cable companies and entertainment providers. The number of corporate mergers and strategic alliances that have happened have been staggering. Phone companies, cable companies, entertainment and computer companies have formed new conglomerates poised to take control of America's communication future. How will this concentration of interests affect our information highway as a democratic structure?
I don't know if the coming together of and the mergers now that we're seeing in the cable TV industry and the alliances that we're seeing between the cable TV industry and communications companies and the partnerships and the partnerships that a year ago or 2 years ago you couldn't even envision, right? I'm not sure whether that means there is more competition or less competition. It's more interesting competition, that's for sure.
These mergers between telephone companies and the cable industry is giving us a new hybrid of media monopoly, a monster.
What's that?
It's more interesting competition, that's for sure.
The producers and distributors of information are fewer and fewer, and so they're putting much more control on what information is available. And clearly, when they look at information, they're looking at the bottom line. Their basic concern is not diversity and alternative voices. Their basic concern is market share.
And in this scenario, I'm going to pretend I'm a 6th grade teacher and I'm calling a librarian. Whereas in this case, I'm going to dial the first one here, which is the Burlington Free Library, call them up and meet the librarian.
Good morning, Burlington Free Library. How can I help you?
And I'd be doing a unit on plate tectonics here. I'd ask her to research volcanoes, earthquakes, so on and so forth. Let's see what she can find for me.
Plate tectonics. Okay, I think a good place to start looking for material like that would be with National Geographic's video archives.
And now I'm connected to a National Geographic video service. Now this service doesn't exist, but we expect it to be a very routine feature of broadband networks in the future. Simple VCR type of interface to make it very easy for the user. Simply press play to preview the clip. These third-party information providers could be expensive, particularly in terms of finding very specialized data.
We pay a lot of money to get access to some of the information that we then permit our users to use. Clearly, individuals are not going to be able to afford that, and libraries can no longer afford some of this information. We're very concerned about the development of an information-rich versus an information-poor society. And we're already seeing that. Some of the richer libraries have access to more information than some of the poorer libraries, and particularly public libraries that have been hit so hard with cutbacks in government funding have really had to be very stingy with what resources they can buy.
The concern that the private companies have is if they say, well, if the libraries give the public stuff that's just as good as the stuff that we're giving out, then we're going to have, competition, and that's going to be a problem. And so the effect in Washington, at least over the last 10 years, has been to try to hold support for the libraries at bay.
And libraries can play a very important role to those people that may not have the resources and the equipment in their homes to get access, but still have something in their community.
Okay, so here's how a network works. Anyone with a computer and a modem can hook up with another computer. Now, a person with a computer gets a modem. The modem connects the computer to a phone line. They can then call into the communication server of another computer that acts as the host computer, which links multiple computer users. The host computer can act as a bulletin board, posting articles, messages, etc. People can collect this information, send electronic mail to other users, or hold live computer conferences to converse with each other in real time. The host can also act as a server or gateway for users to access other host computers on a network. This network may be local, national, or international in scope.
Let's look at how this network model can be used by groups like PeaceNet, The Well, and PEN.
PeaceNet's a computer network, and it's available to anyone who has a computer, a telephone line, and a modem. Its purpose is to link up people who share interests in peace, disarmament, human rights, environmental protection, international development, social justice issues of this sort, and help them communicate between themselves, share information. Now, with all of the trouble in Bosnia, there's a tremendous amount of activity around that. It's actually pretty exciting because it's both people in the U.S. and in Europe, but also people right in Bosnia. There are kids at a refugee camp in Croatia that are plugged into the net, people from all over, so some quite exciting dialogue is possible on the network. One of the things that we do is help kind of like-minded organizations, people like us in other countries, set up the same kind of operation. We've done this in Nicaragua and in Brazil, in different parts of Africa. In fact, later this month, or later in June, I'm heading to Central Asia to work with some people in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan to do the same kind of thing, kind of non-profit organizing in these countries. And we really run these whole little networks off a machine just like this.
The Well has about 220 public conferences with all different volumes and all different sorts of tone where people exchange information. People can add a comment in text to the comment before, and it sort of is like a script. It's like this person said something, that person said something, this person replied and responded, just like real-time conversations. It's interesting to me how much you can understand someone and start to see where their viewpoints come from and have the kind of compassion that makes real communication possible. Really learning to communicate is the most important thing, and I do think that carries over in terms of self-governance.
PEN is an acronym for Public Electronic Network, which is a computer system that allows anyone who is a resident of Santa Monica to dial into a computer and access information, communicate with City Hall using electronic mail, communicate with other users on the system, and participate in computer conferencing that we have set up for the purposes of electronic town hall meetings.
One thing that evolved rather gradually was a group that we call the PEN Action Group. We started the PEN Action Group. The project has evolved as showers, washers, and lockers for the homeless.
I've been here in Santa Monica for about 3 years. I've been off and on homeless for most of that time. I've developed great friendships on PEN. Just through talking people, listening to what I have to say, asking questions, we just talk back and forth. I've also been able to articulate my feelings about being homeless on this system, and people have listened. And a lot of the ideas, a couple of ideas that I have mentioned to maybe do something about the problem based on my own experiences, people have listened to and are starting to formalize. I have met people who I really feel I may never have met, even if I had a home, through Penn.
People are at the very beginning of the process of figuring out innovative ways to use the technology. And as is, I guess, common with new media, it's happening both at a kind of a high commercial end and a sort of a low grassroots end. The internet, which is an international network of networks, actually, it's a combination of computer networks, exists all over the world. There are millions and millions of people all over the world who have access to the internet in one way or another. And it's actually a relatively simple, low-powered computer network in many respects. What the internet showed is that people, when you give people the ability to communicate in an interactive way, they do all kinds of interesting, innovative things with it. And the internet has really taken off beyond the wildest expectations of the people who first put it together.
We have a wonderful operating environment, and our goal is going to be to try to preserve that wonderful operating environment as commercial forces are brought to bear on this new market opportunity.
The future of the internet and the electronic superhighway is being decided now. Will it develop as a publicly funded network or as a privately built and operated one? Congress has already allocated $430 million in seed money to private corporations as an incentive to develop an electronic superhighway. Where does that leave the internet and the public interest?
I am very concerned that the Clinton administration is backing away from its initial promise during the campaign to have an information superhighway that is publicly run and serves a variety of public interests.
I think we've misspent so much of our government funds, and we're into this giant debt situation now. The government is backing out of more of the basic infrastructure development in terms of hooking up grade schools or community centers or libraries. And they're passing a lot of control of the main pieces of the internet over to consortiums of private companies.
One of the reasons that the whole internet thing turned around was that the 8 regional Bell Operating Company CEOs met with Gore about 6 weeks ago on a Friday. And they said, you know, back away from expanded internet and we'll put all this money into the infrastructure. And right then and there, the administration began backing away from continuing internet. So it's strictly a question of political power. These folks have the political power. They're using it. The administration just, you know, is reacting to whoever has the most political power. And our side, the public side, doesn't exist, really.
The concern of the commercial networks having control over the information going over those networks is a serious matter to librarians because of this desire to make sure that all voices are heard and all voices are accessible. And we're concerned in the commercial arena that's not going to happen.
Commercialism has this extraordinary skewing effect. Suddenly you see your potential users very differently. In fact, they're no longer users, they're now customers. And you treat customers differently.
One has to be very sure, as you have all these demands on the internet to commercialize it, that the uses that are not so financially lucrative have a place, and that there's some place scoped out for them so that it doesn't just get used, go to the highest bidder, which is what we've seen in a lot of other media.
companies, including cable and the telephone industry, have opposed nonprofit rates. They're opposed to having access channels, local government, educational, and other public access channels. They're opposed to providing a portion of their revenues to fund public broadcasting. They're unwilling to provide even a small portion of the 500 and 1,000 channel superhighway for public use. They want to control it all.
The electronic highway will have up to 500 channels, and it will offer these amazing possibilities for communication. However, many questions remain unanswered. If telephone companies or others, by that matter, are going to be allowed to develop this electronic highway, then we want electronic parks to go with it, just like any development. We want also money to grow the grass, to keep the trees, and to be able to work with the community.
Access! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Access! The concept of public access is access to the means of production of imagery, access to equipment, access to training, access to publicity in the newspaper, and that's what public access is. It's a kind of an electronic park, and that we need to conserve, just like we try to conserve the national forest lands and the national parks, as one area in the land that is taken care of for the community and to be used by the community. That's what public access channels are to the airwaves.
Public access TV came into existence over 20 years ago when the cable companies used the public streets to run their cable for private profits. Because of this, they had to give something back to the cities. People organized to get community access TV channels, facilities, and training in over 1,000 cities and towns across the United States.
These are broadcast decks, so the quality is really good, and you can roll in 3/4 and record onto 3/4. If there wasn't a place like this Access Center, do you think you would be working on this kind of a project?
Definitely not, because it's something that I would never be able to afford, and it have helped me to increase my technical knowledge and understanding of this type of communication.
We need to understand what it's going to cost the country if we do not have public access. We need to sort of reframe the debate away from, public access is nice, gee whiz, the public parks are kind of nice places to go, please give us a public access channel. What is it going to cost society if we don't have public access? What is it going to cost the government if we do not have equitable access to the national information infrastructure?
Things are changing fast and we got to stay ahead of things, so follow me. And here we are inside, upstairs on the second floor, up over the Procnon main bar, oldest bar in the city, at the Minneapolis Television Network. We're right outside the editing suites. When Wayne's World was playing downstairs and the people walked by and saw one of our people editing, all of a sudden you could see these little lights going off in their head, that they understood suddenly what public access was about, that they could make their own programs. So we try and make it as accessible as possible.
One of the things that's become very important in terms of these converging technologies is the notion that the individual is no longer simply a passive recipient. The individual gets to create, gets to store, gets to retrieve, gets to create environments. And one who is unable to do that really is disenfranchised in the new environment. So how do we teach people how to use the technology?
Urban areas, I think, to focus on centers where people come together, where they can train each other, teach each other, share resources, skills, ideas. I think that's where you're going to generate both an enthusiasm for the technology, but also a reasonable use of it.
Well, this is our center. It's called Playing to Win, and it's right in the heart of Harlem. And we're actually at the borderline between Harlem and East Harlem. We have predominantly African American and Latino community right around the center. And this center has really become a lifeblood of people in the community. Come on in. I want to introduce you to our center. How's it going?
Pretty good.
We have at the center almost 500 people coming through weekly. We have children, we have teenagers, and we have adults coming in and learning how to use computers. And this is really where the power of Plain to Win really derives from. It is giving people the opportunity to use technology, but use it in a collective way, use it in a way where people are working collaboratively and using it as a tool for self-empowerment. An often misused word, but certainly here, this is where it's happening.
There's no computers at my school because New York City doesn't have that much money to get computers, and this is a great center so you could come. For kids, it's a great place to do your homework, and for adults, it's a good place to do their stories if they're authors or something, or their resumes.
We believe very strongly that our community cannot be left out of the 21st century. We need to become active players, active participants in determining the policies and determining the specific guidelines that are going to be used and how this technology is going to be accessible to all of us. Unfortunately, what we have is major corporations, as always, beginning to determine how this technology is going to be used. And we believe that the community needs to be involved in setting that up. And we call it the Community Technology Forum, and we do it once a month, right here in the heart of Harlem.
A democratic society had to be a society that had free flow of information, and to this day it becomes even more critical when information is flowing in so many ways over so many conduits.
We've got to make some dreams come true. We've got to make sure that there is this integrated, worldwide switching system that is fully integrated with voice, video, and data, that it is used to build democracy worldwide, and that cyberspace doesn't become full of cyber smog with the power and influence of the traditionally controlling dominant forces, that there are citizen access sites to cyberspace and the information highway in every community, that it is low cost or free for everyone to use, and that democracy is the goal, and peace and understanding worldwide are the goals of this cyberspace information highway.
Make your voice heard on these issues. Write, phone, fax your local and federal representatives. Tell them you're concerned about the future of non-commercial communication.